It's Stevivor's Friendly Fire Show, episode 195 for the end of March 2022. I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Wright, and joining me as always is my friend and yours, Ben Salter, and we've got an extra special guest this fortnight in the form of Matt Gosper, because it's February slash March, and we have just games to talk about and more games beyond that. So we're just going to do that pretty much like the last episode. If you want to listen to us, you probably already are, obviously, or maybe you're watching us. You can hit us on your podcast player of choice by searching for Stevivor. You can also get the video on demand on youtube.com/Stevivor. Or, once this all maybe quiets down, you can probably catch us live streaming on Twitch every fortnight on a Thursday, twitch.tv/Stevivor. That's all I had to say. We have so many things to talk about in an hour to do it. No banter. We'll do the banter mid-game. Matt,
ready.
Welcome. We're coming in hot. Hello, how are you doing? And also, let's start talking about Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins. What a name to start with. Did I even get it right?
You did, and you sounded just as confused as anyone playing that game should, so well done. I have done my best to get all my swears out of my body before the recording, because I know Haim and Luke got in trouble last time, so I've done all my hex and fricks, and now I'm ready to talk about this frickin' game. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. It is... I realized trying to explain this game to a friend the other night, basically what it is, it's a Japanese studio's interpretation of the gruff white man in every American action film. So you just filter your Die Hard through the lens of Japan, and that's how you get a blonde man with a big sword and headphones who says bullshit to princesses.
And a wife beater? Or is that one of the other ones? Someone has a wife beater.
He had an asymmetrical t-shirt to begin with. Completely different. It's his black friend with the incredibly tweezed eyebrows who has the wife beater. Only a Japanese person would design a giant, beefy black man with drag queen eyebrows, but there you go.
Well, you need those to fight chaos? That's all I got from from anything dealing in revolving around this game. The intro, the announcement, and everything following they're getting chaos, and somehow it's tied to every Final Fantasy ever, or no?
Yes, they're either fighting or finding or proving the existence of chaos, depending on which chapter of the story you're in. The game doesn't really seem to know what it's doing, but at the core, it's a vague retelling of the storyline of the original Final Fantasy game from way back in 1987, a year I only remembered because I was born at the same time. So essentially, Chaos is the big bad end villain of Final Fantasy 1. So you start off by going off to the castle where Garland, the first boss, is, and from there everything goes off the rails. They did explicitly say that they'd drawn inspiration from famous, or in some cases infamous, dungeons from throughout the series for the inspiration of the locations in the game. So the volcano is instead the volcano from Final Fantasy VIII. The snowy mountain is instead the snowy mountain from Final Fantasy X, and so on and so on. It's a nice touch because it does give a lot more flavor. I'm sure it's easier to redesign a game from the PS2 era than it is from the original NES, when the dungeon was about 256 pixels square. So it's fun for a romp, but the levels are terribly designed, which does present a little bit of a challenge for the gameplay.
I have so many questions, and I don't know if I even want them answered. So is it just inspired by the entire franchise, or is it is this some sort of weird Square Enix attempt to do a Marvel connected universe where all of the Final Fantasies, which to my understanding were always kind of completely separate entities, or unless it's X or X2, are now sort of connected by this weird backstory that we didn't know of because this guy in an asymmetrical t-shirt is fighting chaos?
So yeah, the Final Fantasy games themselves aren't interconnected. It's more like a an overall heading for the series that generally there's going to be crystals and mages and all that kind of stuff. In this one, the way that they've couched it, and I don't know how spoilery we want to get here, but I'll try and keep it fairly light. When you're loading into each level, inspired by this, that, or the other game, there's a little loading screen highlight that kind of is presented as notes from a developer of this world, question mark, saying that, for this location, which is the volcano that has the fire crystal in it that controls all the heat on the planet, was inspired by Dimension 8, so Final Fantasy 8. Yeah, and that's kind of how they excuse having just a greatest hits of locations, where you go to the final dungeon from Final Fantasy VI, which was badly designed in its original incarnation, and they've stayed true to that, so I do respect the authenticity of the craft there. So you're going through the basic beats of the original game, you fight the 4 elemental fiends at the 4 elemental crystals, you beat up Garland, but also the guy you're playing as is called Jack Garland, so I wonder what's going to happen there. And then some other stuff happens towards the end, which I won't spoil because that is actually a break from the original storyline for those who actually give a hoot. It's in between. You're hitting a lot of things with a big sword and smashing them and turning them into crystals, which I will admit stays fun the whole time, because essentially you knock them down, you stagger them, and then you can do a finisher which charges up your magic. And they're just excessively violent. You're grabbing a bat out of the air and smashing it into the ground. You're getting big worms by the face and kind of flinging them back and forth. The worst one is the horse enemies, which I mentioned in my review, because it upset me on a deep visceral level somehow, where he gets the horse's neck around his arm and just snaps it and then throws the horse away, which I realize he's like snapping open the jaws of wolves and stuff in between, but somehow the horse one just was too disrespectful.
If they made glue out of the horse rather than just like casting it aside, maybe that's a different story. That was a horrible joke. So you are. I'm just gonna assume you're a Final Fantasy fan. You are questioning the design decisions of games present and old. Like, to not sound like a young hip kid, but like, what's good? What's good about this game to maybe finish off Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins?
I think going into this game, you can't be looking for what Final Fantasy as an overall series is famous for, which is storyline, because you are not going to get it. What you should go in there is for the greatest hits nature of it. You want to go through and be like, oh, I remember this place. Like the one of the locations based on Final Fantasy XII, as I was playing through it, I was remembering that dungeon from Final Fantasy XII because it had these sliding walls that you have to fight so that they don't push you back down to the previous level. Things like that. So they know enough about the franchise, and then nice touches like enemies, like the boss enemies, will strike the same pose as their original sprites from the first Final Fantasy game. It's those little nods that you're going to see if you've been in the franchise, but you're not missing anything if you're not part of the 25 years of history at this point. Essentially, it's mindless entertainment. You go in, you beat things up, you collect 600,000 pieces of loot that you will start off sort of slowly examining and saying, which ones look good together, which ones give me the right boost. But I can guarantee by the 7th story level, you will just be hitting optimize equipment and moving on with your life. And then picking a level of equipment that you're going to start eliminating from and working down when you're dismantling stuff, because that's just what it is. The fact that there's not a mass dismantle button is a crime, because I think between every story level I had to destroy about 60, no joke, items of equipment just to sort of free up my inventory and move on with my life. So go into it expecting like something that you can just mindlessly play and probably not invest too much emotional energy into, and you're going to have a great time. That's about it. There's co-op. You can play that if you want. You can beat up the same 12 enemies with all your friends. That's it. That's the end.
The loot is such a good segue into what I've been playing. But before we do that, like, because Ben, you're not going to talk for another at least 5 or 10 minutes. How you doing? What's going on?
I've got to be honest with you. I've never even heard of this game, so I feel like I'm out of the loop here. I used to know all the games that are coming out. I used to be a paid games journalist, did you know? And I thought this was like some old game from years ago. Like I didn't even know there was a Final Fantasy out. I did know of Tiny Tina's Wacky Whatever Wild Land. I didn't realize it had come out. I knew it was a thing. Apparently it's coming out soon. So yeah, I'm out of the loop. I've been playing Mass Effect, so that's where I'm at.
You're just a Mass Effect and Kirby shill, but we'll get to Kirby in a
Yeah,
second. We're going to stick with that segue that's completely like gone, but I'm just going to loop it, lasso it back, and pull it back.
Friendly Fire show.
Talk about a whole bunch of loot that like is just over encompassing and just horribly annoying and needing to be managed rather than enjoyed. I have played Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which it started off, I guess, trying to summarize, as a Borderlands 2 piece of DLC tied to Dungeons and Dragons, which it's now its own kind of thing. What am I trying to say? Fantasy themed D&D type of experience that basically just uses the same Borderlands mechanics. It also has the same Borderlands humor, which I wholeheartedly despise. I don't think Borderlands is funny. I think it's juvenile and goes for like the lowest common denominator. And if you disagree, that's absolutely fine. I'm not trying to like disparage you. I'm just like, it's not for me. I don't find it funny. As examples, like there's a unicorn called Butt Stallion, and you go to like Buttland and like Buttvania, and like if I was 6, I'd like think that was funny, but I as a 40-year-old go like, why are we here? So that I was struggling with. Wonderlands has like a stellar voice cast. It's Ashley Birch, who's Aloy, and a whole bunch of other characters. She's Tiny Tina reprising her role. There's also Wanda Sykes and Andy Samberg and Will Arnett as like the core group of people. Like, and they're all really, really good. Samberg's probably the weakest link of the bunch, and I really like Will Arnett because he has this kind of he breaks, like, not Deadpool style, but he like breaks that fourth wall, and he's very self-aware. And like I likened it in my review to, it's such a nerdy thing to have likened it to, but like Moriarty in Star Trek The Next Generation holodeck. Like the holodeck is a fictional construct where everybody's just like light and photon and noise, but the ones and zeros that made like Sherlock Holmes' nemesis, like they made him so smart that he realized that he was kind of like a construct in this game, and like that's basically the Dragon Lord who's the baddie. So that is cool. Apart from that, it's just very Borderlands. The loot is just everything just loot's dropping and falling and cascades around you, and like your inventory maxes out instantly, and then you're just basically like mousing over things on the ground, like trying to figure out if there's enough green or red to like pick up, and then you get cosmetics that don't have stats, so you just have to go and like purge things if you decide you kind of want something. It's just like too much to manage for me. And then when it comes to the gameplay loop itself, playing solo because I didn't have a chance to play with other people, it's just the same thing over and over and over. There's an overworld that kind of like you run through Final Fantasy style, but like the random encounters, it's more like, I guess, the new Pokemon Arceus or whatever. Like they pop up and you can kind of see them running at you and you can run away, but like the camera is so poorly constructed that sometimes you just run into a dead end without realizing, and then you have to fight this encounter, which could be 1 or 2 like kill rooms where you just have to beat enough bad guys until a progress bar goes from like 0 to 100, and it's not fun. It's just kind of tedious. But then you get into like explorable places where like that's exactly the same situation you're going to find yourself in, and it's just a lot of the same. And if you had friends and you were kind of doing it as a group, like I understand it would be a bit more enjoyable. But combined with like the loot management and the not funny humor, to me, like it's I get why people like the Borderlands games, and if that's for you, then you're gonna love this one. But it's like it's definitely not for me. The shooting feels a little bit airy and light compared to like the weight that you get in like a Destiny 2 gun, as a comparable example, which also has loot, but which has like slower loot drops, and you can kind of like get a chance to experience the loot that you're picking up and see if you like it or not before you like turf it, where this is just like you're throwing things out left and right. It's just like it's too much for me. So I don't know, any questions? I just talked about that one.
Well, I've never really been into Borderlands, but I don't know what you're seeing, Matt. I'm seeing Steve as like a blur of like artifacts over the top of his head, so it's very funny seeing that talk at me. I know you've got some fancy like new cabling in your house, Steve, but it has not helped your internet connection to my house, so
Oh,
never
can you
mind.
hear me
Uh,
okay?
I can hear you perfectly
Oh,
fine. It's just your video which has gone funny, which is kind of an odd way to. I can only get like the top of your head moving and the bottom of your head staying the same. So,
well,
what a
it's
freaky
amusing for
way.
you. It's good. It's
He's
basically
just
Yeah,
matching the video quality to his like level of appreciation for the Borderlands franchise,
is
which
it
I
that's
have
pretty
played
much
all
it.
of. So I can
Oh, so
maybe
you're a
offer a
fan.
little bit more. Mm, I've played all of them. I can agree to that. I Borderlands 3, I think it's the same thing with any franchise that's been going for a while. Like it can have the same ingredients, but if it's not evolving with the times, then that's a problem. And Borderlands 3 was more Borderlands, which isn't necessarily a good thing if that's all it is. It sounds like they've changed things up a little bit in Wonderlands. I was actually surprised to read that the layout seems to be more sort of combat arenas as opposed to a more open worldy situation like the traditional Borderlands games.
the overworld is kind of that open world, but obviously not because it's just like a hub connector to get
Hmm.
from mission to mission. Like once you get to main missions, it's more like open areas. But I was so sick of kill rooms that I was kind of just like bypassing all of the. And you like I do it in Destiny now too, but it doesn't seem to matter as much in Destiny. Like you see the little objective marker at the end of like the entire map, and you go, well, bugger this. I'm just gonna run to that. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna worry about this fight or that fight or this fight or that fight. But in doing that, I was realizing I kind of needed to kill all the things in between to level up because you get to the next mission and it has like a level, like not like a requirement. You can go and be under leveled, but if you're under
Hmm.
leveled, you basically just get stomped. So it's a grind in a whole bunch of ways, I guess, to like get all the loot and figure out the loot, and it's a grind to have to do all the things so you actually level up enough. Or if you don't, then you just have to take on more side missions, which are samey and problematic. So I don't know, like
Yeah.
if you wanted to
It
play
is a
this for
little
like 4 months, you'd be happy because like you just take it in bite-sized chunks, I guess.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a shame because I do remember playing the original DLC for Borderlands 2 that this was based on, the Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep,
Yeah,
I
which is
think.
now
Which
standalone, I think. If you
they've now
want to
released a
play
standalone, I think, because they wanted to refresh people's memories on the whole thing.
a paid
That
demo.
was that was a lot more fun because the whole thing with that was in the storyline of Borderlands 2. Spoilers, who cares? One of the original four playable characters from Borderlands 1 dies as part of the story. And the whole DLC was basically Tiny Tina, who idolized this character Roland, trying to process the grief of his death. So the whole quest revolved around saving the character based on him from memory. So it was really great because it was her going through the stages of grief in the form of like a slightly more crass Dungeons and Dragons. The fact that that ingredient hasn't carried over in any way to this new game is a little bit of a shame because that's what pulled me through it because it was the final DLC from memory. So that was, four DLCs deep on a game that's already a loot grinder. So if you're coming in and being exhausted from the base game, that's probably not a great sign.
But that's okay because we can just fully just leave this and go straight to a wholesome Nintendo game that doesn't have butt jokes. Well, it might have butt jokes for all I know, but Ben can tell us if Kirby and the Forgotten Land is full of butt stallions or not.
It's definitely going to have vor jokes
Mm,
once it releases, that's for sure.
I don't think Kirby has a butt. Like he eats a lot, but it's like a ball. So
It all goes
anyway,
in. I guess it comes out the front too. He
yeah,
just
it's all. It's like a bird. It's just got the one hole that deals with everything. Uh, well, we touched on Kirby last time. The reason I've enjoyed it quite a lot is, unlike I suspect those two games we just spoke about, unlike everything else that seems to be out this year. So we started with what, Pokemon Legends, then we had Elden Ring, then we had Horizon. All these games that want 1,000 hours of my time, which I cannot be bothered playing. I finished this game in 5 hours, and it was a good 5 hours. Now, a lot of people will say that's not worth the money. It's excellent. Like, that's what I want. That's what you could play it again. Like, a lot of the levels are, they want you to play it again to find the hidden stuff. So maybe it's a 7 hour game. Short and sweet. That's exactly what I wanted. The gist is basically Kirby's been around for 30 years, created by the late Iwata, or at least he was involved in making the original games. And they never made a 3D one. So they attempted on the GameCube, but it got cancelled. And they've just done side scroller, side scroller, side scroller. We've seen Zelda, Mario, everyone else go 3D, and they just never tried with Kirby. So it's technically not a Nintendo game. It's made by like their second-party developer who's never made anything for anyone else. So it
How?
is, but it isn't.
Are they
Yeah.
acquired now, or was that someone else that they just acquired? I
Don't
can't
think
remember.
so.
Anyway, doesn't matter.
Nintendo don't really acquire. They're kind of letting Xbox and PlayStation acquire, and they're like, yeah, we've got like the people who only know how to make games for Switch because they're like years behind. So they're not going to go to anyone else. There's one of them. They've got some deal. There was like we'll give you Iwata as your future president if like you save us financially or something. I don't know. It's in his little book that came out recently. But yes, fun game. If you want a quick read the preview because I was happier with that than the review. It reads much better. It's quicker. Gives you the same gist. So that's my hot take. Essentially what it is Super Mario 3D World, 3D Land in Kirby design. So that was the Mario game where it kind of did a 2D level in a 3D world. So you still have to go A to B. You're trying to get to the end. It's quite restricted, but you've got the 3D camera. So that's actually quite a game changer for such a very simple, basic, old school design, which is in classic Nintendo fashion. We've done it for the first time years after we could have done it. But it's fun. Like, it works quite well. The abilities are nothing that you haven't seen before. So if you've ever played a Kirby game, he basically sucks up enemies and he either gets their sword or he gets their fireball or he gets their ice ball or becomes a giant spike or whatever. And I would say it's like Ratchet and Clank in that regard. A lot of people think this is going to be a platformer, but it's actually a combat game, which is exactly the same thing with that. Most of your time is spent killing things, a little bit of platforming. So that's probably where it is actually quite different to Mario and more like Crash Bandicoot in the way that you getting past and through enemies is the main thing you're doing. Finding which path to take when there's a couple of different ones is what makes it interesting and why you'd potentially play it again, to find those little hidden things, which is very Donkey Kong in that you want to get all the hidden things. I don't know if you're like me and if you miss one of those Kong letters, you just had it and you've got to go back to the start. So that's pretty much what it is. Very similar. I think we're not allowed to say how many stages are in there. I had that in my review and I checked the list of what's allowed. You can't say how many stages, but we can say how many worlds. There are 6 worlds and they each have a handful. How many fingers do you have? I don't know, of stages each. So that's how many stages are in it. How many could I hold if I had one per finger? So
I didn't
yes,
go to
essentially
school for math.
exactly. I don't know. But yeah, so not a great deal of content, but it's still fun. My point is basically going back to the start. Everything doesn't have to take forever. Short little fun stages is still worthwhile. I get it if I was 12, and being a kid's game essentially is probably its weakness in that when you would play one game for like 6 months, this is probably not the one you want. Funnily enough, as a much older man now playing this essentially kids game, that's what I want, like short and sweet. So that's Kirby.
Oh man, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, from the last Kirby game, Planet Robobot on the 3DS, it brought back the same memory of every Kirby game, which is, when I get to the end, I'm sad that it's over, which, yeah, is definitely better than getting to the end and saying, finally. So I appreciate that it's a short and sweet experience. I did want to ask, though, the thing they've been selling in a lot of the trailers is the ability to upgrade the traditional copy abilities. Does that actually change much? Because they look different, but I don't know how differently it plays.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's 2 sides to that. There's the upgrading the abilities that you say, which you can do. So each one can be upgraded twice. And then there's kind of the mouth mode ones, which were in Load the trailers, where he like sucks up a car. They're the ones that he kind of can't fully consume. So he's kind of like a snake. He kind of eats most of a car, but he realizes he's going to have to give it up eventually and spit it back out. And it does say spit. That's your command on the screen to like, okay, I can't. That's how you know I can't swallow that. They literally Kirby's 2 options. So it's like car, staircase, like a pipe, construction pipe. He like fills himself up like a water balloon and goes like full on Mario Sunshine or Splatoon, I guess, for the kids. That's the more modern version of that. So that stuff actually doesn't make a huge difference. Like it's all in the trailers, but it's pretty brief. Upgrading your abilities, if it was a harder game, it would make a difference. Like getting a bigger sword, a bigger hammer, more powerful fire, great. But like the game doesn't get any harder, so it just kind of gets a little bit harder, but it's still a very easy game. So it's kind of like it's a good structure that would make a difference. There is like a challenge mode at the end where I suppose is useful in, but you know, I've had enough by then. Like I've already beaten all these bosses and why do I want to beat them again? That's not for me. It goes against the short and sweet. So yes is the answer. Like when I pretty much just use fire in like the gun one and the sword and I kind of ignored the rest and I powered them up and like it funnels you to do that because you pick your favorites. They're the most powerful. They're the ones you're going to stick with.
It's nice to hear that they've given Kirby a gun. Really adult this game up.
Oh, when I say gun, it's like a ray. It's called Ranger. So it's like shoots like little BB pellet things, and it powers up to shoot out like a Buzz Lightyear type of thing. So
It's like a gun from Smash Brothers. It goes pew pew and stuff. Oh, maybe not, but
yeah,
same idea.
that is the weird thing. Like it's still Nintendo cutesy. You've got like a little laser gun, but then you're in this like post-apocalyptic world where there's like still pretty cutesy enemies that you're killing, but there's just the odd sign of like civilization is dead. Like that's a bit odd, but good on him.
The Last
I
of
think all
Us?
Kirby games are like that.
The
Yeah.
segues just don't stop coming. They're coming in hot and fast and furious. So you mentioned like a sort of a post-apocalyptic world where everybody's gone. I'm slowly weaving these threads. You also kind of, to me, explained Kirby's first foray into a 3D environment where maybe like it's a test bed and a start of better sequels to come. And that is how I would kind of explain the next game that we're
Maybe.
going to talk about. Ghostwire Tokyo.
Where are we going?
I feel like
Okay.
Matt has better things to say about it, so I'm going to let Matt take this one away. Tango Softworks not doing a Resident Evil game, instead doing a first-person Tokyo game, really. How would you describe it, I guess? A Tokyo game?
What
It's
genre?
It is
It's-
now.
It's a place.
Well,
an open world Japan up. I don't know. It is a different beast. I mean, having worked on the Resident Evil series and the Evil Within games, Shinji Mikami, the sort of driving force behind this new game, has done first-person stuff before, despite the apparent reputation that Japan doesn't like developing first-person games, which seems untrue. You're basically exploring around Tokyo that has just been messed up by Mr. Ghost, the guy who made everyone go away with his bad fog.
it is menacing fog.
His menacing fog, which has letters and numbers in it when you walk up close to it, which literacy is scary, it's true. So you're sort of working your way through Tokyo, having just survived by the skin of your teeth, or rather the skin of the teeth of the guy that you're possessing, and sort of expanding the amount of the city you can get to. You're climbing or finding these torii gates, sort of the traditional Shinto red gates that anyone who's seen a photo of a Japan Shinto shrine will have seen. That's the shape.
Like
Yes,
sticky
good job.
areas. Yeah,
Excellent visual for the podcast, Steve.
you're welcome.
And you use those to kind of expand the amount of the map. They're basically your viewpoints from Assassin's Creed or any tower you've climbed in any Far Cry game, except they're actually unlocking the areas because essentially if you walk into the fog, you have about 5 seconds before you're done. So early on in the game, it is kind of fun to see a clump of spirits or a collectible or whatever just out of reach to kind of duck in, grab it, and then jump back. But it's pretty quick to kind of go through and expand these areas. Luckily, it's not just pushing you from story mission to story mission. You can explore a bit as you go before you get to the end of the game, and there is a lot of stuff to do because it is an open world game. You have, what do you have? You have Jizo statues to find, which upgrade your 3 different elemental finger gun abilities.
Weaving.
Which also those statues have a pretty sad history behind them, so read up about that in the menus. They are the guardian spirits of lost children and travelers. So I think I read something looking into these to make sure I didn't describe them wrong in my review and the coverage. They are the embodiment of spirits of children who have died. So that's cool. Anyway,
technically though, that's like all of Tokyo right now. Like it's devoid of people. They're all spirits. I guess maybe they can be saved. I haven't finished. I hope they can. But like I'm kind of working on the premise that they're all just kind of dead. You're just like helping them like not be like lost spirits in the world. Don't finish that spoiler wise. But anyway.
Yeah, so anyway, the dead kid statues give you more bullets. There are tanuki to find, who are your sort of raccoon spirit things, based on an actual kind of dog from Japan, which I didn't realize.
Based
The
on
Japanese
Mario.
raccoon dog. Based on Mario, sorry, I misspoke. They are sort of hidden as different objects all around the place. So if you ever see a vending machine out of place or a teeny tiny Shinto shrine down an alleyway, probably say hey to it. Then you've also got a bunch of different kinds of yokai, Japanese spirits, you can track down in different ways. Some of them you've got to chase, some of them you've got to trap. All of them are weird from a Western perspective because the Japanese are so much more creative with their supernatural lore, it seems. Ghost ladies who hide in drain pipes and killer headless teenagers, all this kind of stuff. It's
Fat,
great.
blubby doors, as an
Yes,
example.
the Tsukigumo, I think. I've probably gotten that completely wrong.
Potentially. I just thought it was a yokai. I think I'm just calling everything a yokai. I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, those guys are great. Their whole job in life is just to hide doors, to make trouble. So all of these spirits as well, they have a nice little description in the menus to kind of give you a bit of information. So it's not just, look, it's a fat doorman. You actually can read up to see where that comes from. So you're going around collecting all this stuff. You're doing side missions to help people who are trapped between this life and the next all over Tokyo. You can climb up stuff. There's a lot more verticality to the game than I was expecting, because I was expecting something that would keep you in tight little corridors moving through Tokyo, more like a Resident Evil type game. But yeah, like almost immediately they're encouraging you to get up on the rooftops so you can dodge around enemies if you don't feel like it. And there's always stuff scattered on the roofs, like ghost chips, which give you health and a special boost for a little while. There's dogs to pat and feed dog food, so they'll give you money the way dogs do. The cats don't do anything for you, which is on brand.
You can't pet the cats. You try the first time, and then you're just like, nah. And then you
Yeah.
never get the option again, which I thought was actually
It sounds
quite
like real life.
good. Yeah.
That's it.
It's great. Like most of the time, Akito will just wave at the cat and then move on. You can't feed them; they don't want to give you anything. It's the representation the cats deserve.
And they basically just say because you can read the minds of all the cats, because literally like there's spirits and stuff in the world, but like there's not there was like, it's like the Rapture. There's like a fog that's taken everyone away. It's like a buddy cop, but it's in the same body. Like you and you're also like this spiritual detective guy who's like represented by a black fog over one eye, basically, and you're kind of having conversations with yourself, and like that's it, and like maybe the occasional spirit, but they're pretty like disconnected from the world. So you like literally can just read the minds of tanukis and dogs and cats, and the dogs are quite lovely, and they're like, they all have these like amazing characters, and the cats are just like, I'm grumpy, or like, I'm hungry, but you can't feed the cat because the cats are just eternally grumpy. It's cute. That stuff is cute.
Great. Yeah, so it is interesting because you basically never see another character. Like the only humanoids walking around Tokyo are the bad guys. When you're sort of cashing in all of the souls that you've picked up at a payphone, you get to sometimes talk to a guy who doesn't want to talk to you directly because he's a white guy who doesn't like direct communication. So representation
It
for
sounds
us
like
in the game.
a classic Shinji game where you're walking around, you barely see anyone, then there's like one crazy guy in a trench coat being welcome, stranger. Like that's all these games. No one around.
You don't even see him. No trench coat. He's just he records his own voice and then plays it through a telephone where you save souls. And if you played the free visual novel ahead of time, you get to meet him, I guess, theoretically, but he still talks into a recorder and plays the recorder to you rather than like speak to you directly. Very quirky.
Yeah. This character, Ed, he's one of the ones who's in the Prelude visual novel that they put out. It is kind of an interesting choice, just a character quirk that's there for the sake of it, because he could just as easily talk to you, but he doesn't. He also makes a lot of reference to someone named Dale, which it's never made clear who that is, if it's his friend, his son, his husband. The character doesn't appear in any of the databases, is not mentioned in the visual novel. Maybe there's a Dale LC on the way. That worked really well in my head.
Like Dale Cooper with a recording, like Twin Peaks style. It's probably just a reference. The weird thing, you've been playing in the English dub, and I'm playing in the way that the menus are like arranged. So like every voiceover is Japanese, and you get English subtitles. But even Ed, who is like from the prelude prequel, whatever it is, like decidedly a white dude, has like just well, as far as I can tell, I don't know, just like perfect Japanese. I thought maybe he was like recording himself because he was like unsure of like getting it right, but he just sounds like every other character. So like, I don't know if he was like stumbling over words or something, or like you could kind of tell it was an edit where he like had a second pass at like a certain bit of the phrase. Like, I don't know. Sorry to cut you off because I keep doing that. That's how this podcast works. That's the kind of stuff that like you really like Ghostwire Tokyo, and I like it less, but I still like it. And it's kind of because of those small little details. Like there's so much more room to have given the game character. And you're like, oh, if you go and read the menus, you'll find out more about the Japanese culture. It's like, I just feel like if they had more time, they could have put a lot of those quirky things that are in like a text dump, like in the side quest proper. Like it's a good starting point, and I hope if they do another one, like there's lessons learned to make it more of an engaging experience, because it is really good. The characters are really good. I really like the start of combat. I like how everything's kind of set up, but like it's feeling a little bit by the numbers to me. But that said, I haven't finished it, so like there's probably stuff that I haven't experienced that'll like kind of progress it through as it goes. But with all the stuff that's coming out, I'm kind of like, I'm not in a rush to get back to it. I'm still going to. I like it, but I'm not like as engrossed. But also I can understand the people that are engrossed in it. Same kind of thing, I guess, as Tiny Tina. Like all these things are like scratching certain itches for certain people.
Yeah, I mean, being an open world game, I can understand the developer's desire to kind of keep the pace moving. You want to be able to go from thing to thing to thing and just have a database. I mean, Assassin's Creed does it as well. It's a pretty stock standard thing. But yeah, given that there's no people to talk to throughout the entire game, it would be nice to have a little bit more folded in there. That said, the banter between Aikido and KK is great. They're always poking fun at each other and stuff like that, especially as the game progresses and they kind of stop working at odds with each other. There's a lot of moments early on where KK will be like, no, we need to go this way, and literally take possession of one of Aikido's legs to hold it in place so that he can't go do what he wants. I was disappointed that even though he is typically represented by sort of the right hand with a glowy black cloud over it, they never do a map talking puppet hand. I feel like that's a missed opportunity, and feels like a very weird Japanese thing to do. But yeah, I mean, if they are moving towards a sequel, that would be great, because there's so much love put into this game. Even just things like how fun and cool it looks like when you're doing all these hand signs. Like the wind skill, which is your sort of pistol, it's very kind of cool. He's just doing finger guns, literally. And all the finishing seals are very kind of like Naruto jutsu, to the point where if you beat one of the tougher enemies, once the combat encounter's over, he just kind of does the Japanese equivalent of kind of throwing out the horns. So yeah, there's clearly a lot of style, and the substance is maybe just the bit that's missing a little in the open world.
For me, it's mostly there. Like the way that the combat works, there's like 3 different colors of power, and one's like your normal shot, one's like a shotgun, and one's like, it can be like a sniper rifle or like a charged kind of like grenade, depending on how you do it. And then you have a bow, which like the way that I'm playing combat right now is I like find a group of enemies and I basically just back up and just like cycle through all of the elements that I have until I'm like resorting to the bow, because it's the only thing I have. And then you got to go and find like a glowing trash can and punch it to get more ammo. It's kind of just like you just dump through all your ammo and then you're like, okay, now what do I got to do next? And it like it's a good base, but like if they had enemies maybe where you could like, oh well, these ones like you need the green for, and these ones you need the red for, and these ones you need the blue for, like to try to like mix up how you're strategizing a scenario, and maybe just like either it's on a cooldown or like you slowly rebuild ammo or something. There's just like it's close for me, but it's like not, there's like kind of hard stops where it's just like, ugh, okay, again, I forgot. But like you have to keep shooting at these people, so you can't not shoot. But then you gotta like stop because you literally have no ammo and like find something to replenish. I don't know, it's just like it's kind of disjointed combat for me.
It is a little bit troubling with the ammo amounts. Like if you're not hunting down these kid statues to get like a pittance of extra ammo, it is pretty tough. You'll run out of ammo of everything, regardless of whether you're a terrible shot like me or not. Because the pool is just so little. I think when you start the game, you have maybe 30 shots of your pistol, and most enemies will take 5 or 6 shots minimum at that point. If you're actually hitting them to begin with. They have a touch of expanding the skills to work better for enemies. There's big fat guys with umbrellas. They'll use them to deflect all of your weaving skills, but you can upgrade the fire skill. You sort of grenade launch a sniper rifle to blast through it. But that is a ways into the game before you get up to that upgrade as it is. So, it could be a bit more. There's also the talismans, which I kept forgetting were in there, where you can sort of stun enemies or create an extra hiding spot or distract them, but nothing offensive. So if the problem is running out of ammo, they're not really going to help you much.
You can slow them down when you go and find a trash can to punch.
Exactly.
I think you wholeheartedly recommend it. I pretty much do, especially if you are a fan of Japan. Controversial and I don't even I'm gonna say it, but I know I shouldn't. But in a year from now, when this is potentially free on Xbox Game Pass, if you have the means to just play it, I would absolutely recommend it because it's free if you have that system, and it's worth a shot. You're gonna either find an itch that's scratched or not. Let's quickly move on. Ben, I've watched a couple. You've watched some. I don't know if Matt has, but anyone can now. The first episode of the Halo TV series is out on Paramount Plus. I've watched most of the second episode. My internet just decided it wouldn't play the last 5 minutes. I don't know how far you got in the series.
I watched the first episode. This is the one that you can watch now. So is this a weekly release? They're not going to do weekly
at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight on a Thursday, which I guess next week is 7 p.m. and then it switches to 6 p.m. because we're out of daylight savings time. We're back to standard.
Okay.
So
we actually have some useful advice for the listener, which is that you can get 30 days, I think, free with Game Pass now for Paramount Plus. So if there are 9 episodes, I would suggest doing what I'm going to do and wait at least 4 to 5 weeks to sign up so you can get all of them without having to pay a cent, because I'm not getting another streaming service. Can't do it. You've made a wrong decision going with yet another one, Xbox. You should have gone with one of the 3 that I have. So you should have gone with Stan. I don't even have that anymore.
If you like sci-fi, you probably have Paramount Plus for Star Trek, and now you have Halo on top of it.
Isn't that on Amazon? It's too confusing.
Oh,
too many things. I'm not getting another one.
It's convoluted. The Strange New Worlds is, anyway. Who cares? No one cares about.
Let's stay on Halo.
Super violent. I thought it was pretty good. Though.
So initial thoughts is I was surprised at how much it looked like the game. So often, if we use Uncharted, the movie as a recently come out, it looks like nothing like the game. They've gone totally different characterization. And I get that, they've gone for a different crowd, and I'm sure that movie would do very well. And I kind of thought Halo would do similar in that they would, especially when they announce that Chief is going to be taking off his mask and he's going to have a different voice and he's going to be more of a character, I thought that's going to suck because this is a guy who shouldn't take off his mask. That's not his thing, or his helmet, I should say. Mask is what we all wear every day. Helmet is what the Chief wears. But it worked. As soon as I got over his odd voice, which doesn't sound right, I was over it within 2 minutes. And then when he took off the helmet, I was kind of, again, it didn't quite look right, but I was over it pretty much straight away. And it's kind of each time there's a new Bond, you understand that this is a different version of the character, and that's what I've kind of accepted. This is a different version of Master Chief. The Sean Connery version is probably still Halo 3 Game Chief, but this is pretty close. This is your Daniel Craig, still good. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was surprised at how much even the weapons look like the game. That's where I kind of thought they'd be let's just go with a laser pistol. That's close enough. But they're spot on. So I think that's pretty much all 343 did in terms of their involvement. They just kind of said, here are our designs. This is what it should look like.
Here's
and
the 3D model
they followed
for the Chief. Make the armor look exactly like that, which is good.
And it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so playing the games, all you ever really hear is UNSC and Chief, basically, and they're shouting at everyone, and you kind of don't get the feel that there are other people in the world very often at all, if at all. I'm sure they're around at some point, but you pretty much, it's Halo Infinite, it's pretty barren, right? You're kind of moving around, and you see occasionally, some other soldiers who want your help, not civilians, not real people. So I think smart to start with, here are just some actual people who are devastated by this war, and they're not on either side yet. I don't think that's a spoiler because it's happening in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it kind of introduces you to what's happening through those people's eyes. So I think that's a smart way to do it, to get people who are not Halo fans potentially invested in watching it, because you have some real characters. Because let's face it, when you're playing a first-person shooter, you don't know much about that character because you're behind them the whole time. And I've played so many Troy Baker, Nolan North games where I've been is that my guy? Is that the guy I'm playing as? Is that Troy? And I don't even know sometimes because they just show you briefly in a cutscene. And the Chief got around that by being this iconic figure, and you know that's your guy. But most of Halo is told through Cortana. It's minimal on Chief. So yeah. I think they've done a great job of getting that story across without diluting any of the existing look and style of Halo.
Yeah, there's so all of Bungie's original games, like the Chief was basically a silent protagonist, basically, and you were meant to fill that character. And then when 343 kind of took it on, you started to see this shift away from that, and Chief became more of a personality. And I think that's kind of just like Microsoft and 343 and kind of Bungie kind of thinking about what they've done and where they needed to go, and kind of deciding like, we can't keep this up. Like, the Chief needs to be a person. So like this is completely unrelated to those games. Like, they share the same names and the same general setup, but like they're employing lessons learned and going back in time. And like, I love the lore of like sci-fi kind of things, and I've read, like The Fall of Reach and stuff, like, which is decidedly different from like playing Halo Reach. There's so much extra stuff. And it's not a retelling of the video games. It's its own thing. Absolutely 100% guaranteed.
And that's fine. Like, not a fact-based show, but I would say like 80 to 90% of people, random number I picked out, of Halo players probably don't really understand the lore. They probably couldn't explain the overarching story of the games to you, because who cares? It's a first-person shooter. Like, so I don't think it matters. I think a lot of people will watch this and not really know the story beyond Master Chief is the guy.
Well, and it's a series of games where like, you're the hero, you're the savior, you're all these things, and like you fight the aliens, and the aliens are bad, and ooh, aliens. And if you read some of the books, there's kind of this thing before, like, where there's this, like the UNSC is supposed to be this, force for good, but not every human believes in that. And before the threat of aliens, like, we had aliens amongst humanity. Like, there was two factions, like, oh, they're not us, we have to fight them. And like, this series, episode 2 especially, leans into this, and I'm not going to get into spoilers, but like, it doesn't just assume that the UNSC are the good guys. Like, there's all this conflict and tension amongst different factions. It's like, I can see that being a really good source of drama for a while to come. And like, if you sort of know the overarching story of Halo, you can kind of see where sort of things are going. But then there's like a complete bloody curveball that gets thrown in at near the end of the first episode, Ben, with the something to do with the Covenant. That's all I'm going to say. Where you're like, ooh, like, I have no idea what that's about, and I can't wait to see what's happening there. So there's all these kind of things that they're seeding in. It's weird seeing the Chief without his helmet off. But also, like, I can't imagine this just being, like, a show about a robot. I don't watch The Mandalorian. I'm assuming they've kind of tried to have to work around that constraint as well. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I'm just always going to leave this armor on for, even when I'm, like, sitting here doing nothing. They do a couple in the first episode. I don't think they do in the second. Like, first-person shots through the helmet, like Doom movie style. Yeah. And it's like, please never do that again. So like, they're sort of kind of getting out of like the tropey stuff, and like, by the second episode it's a little bit slower, but a lot of people said the second episode was worse, but I'm enjoying that from what I've seen. I haven't seen it all. I'm enjoying it more than the first, because like, the first was set up, and this one's kind of delving into like the consequences. So I think it's good.
Yeah. So wait, did you say that they've already shown Master Chief's face?
In the first episode.
First episode they show it.
Okay, that's a surprise. I expected that to be like a last 5 minutes of the final episode thing, so that's pretty interesting.
And I thought it was like a different Pablo someone. I thought it was like a Pablo someone who was in Star Wars. Like, I just had this complete different person in my brain. So when he took off the helmet, I'm like, did he get plastic surgery or something? Like, what? That's not the guy. He's a giant hulk of a man. I don't know if they've done something in CGI, but like, he looks like he's like 8 feet tall, and he's like just built like a brick house.
They've found a guy with a face who does look very Xbox 360, like generic hero man. Like, he doesn't look current. If they were making a Master Chief character in game now, that wouldn't be his design, but it would have been 15 years ago.
Well, so they had to save on active polygon, so they had more for the armor.
And there's a couple extra Spartans who do the same thing, like they have their helmets off. And I guess, but that's been the case in Halo for a while now. All the other Spartans can take off their helmet, that's fine, but like not John, not the Master Chief. Like, there's no way he can. Probably the standout character so far for me is whoever plays Dr. Halsey. She's phenomenal. Like, she's just great. Like,
Yeah, I was trying the whole time watching it. I was trying to figure out who that is because I've seen her in like a bunch of stuff, or at least
English
something
woman.
before.
I don't know, but she's great.
Is she actually English, or is she putting on
Oh,
the
well,
accent?
she's English
I was
accented
trying to
lady.
figure that out.
And I think she's
Anyway.
kind of like meant to be, well, like because Cortana is related to Dr. Halsey. I think like they've used kind of her face for Cortana, but it's Jen Taylor who does the voice of Cortana in the games as her voice. I'm glad they didn't like have Hulk guy that I was talking. He's Canadian. I don't know his name. Pablo someone. I'm glad they didn't do like Steve Downes, the voice of Master Chief in the games, is like his voice in the suit or something. Like, I'm just glad they didn't go to that length. But
They didn't Darth Vader it basically and dub over him with here's a cooler voice. It wouldn't have really fit.
no,
Yeah.
they do some weird like modulation to the Spartan's voice that they don't need. Like, but like whatever, that's what it is. Like, they just have some sort of weird speaker system that can't just like project their own voice. It has to be like sort of robotic.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Maybe they just have their hand in front of their mouth while they talk. It's good. It's on
Yeah.
Paramount Plus. You can eventually, like Ben said, get like 30 days access to binge it if you want when the first season comes out. 9 weeks from now, that's how many episodes are there. So enjoy that. The quick fire. This is almost the hour, so like the news is turfed at this point. Ben, maybe Matt, do you want to talk about Tunic quick? Or have you
I
played
can't
Tunic?
because I haven't touched it yet.
Played it very briefly. I think it's it's a little like it's a Link to the Past style dungeon crawler basically. So yeah, fun. A little bit brutal sometimes. Like it destroys you now and again. It's kind of cutesy. You're a little fox basically, and you get through a little bit, and then something just destroys you. So it's got some challenge to it. But yeah, another classic Game Pass game worth a try. Hasn't hooked me though. I'm not sure that I'll finish it.
I kind of like it, but I played it the first day and then I let it go until today, I think, and I'm just like, it's like Death's Door. It's like, I don't know where I am. I need probably 20 minutes to figure out what the heck I was doing, and then I just went, I'll try to get killed by the last couple bosses in Elden Ring instead, because I've hit a wall, and I've like 80 hours, I've got 4 bosses left, and I don't have high hopes for myself. So if you're gonna play it, just play it in one or a couple sittings, and just make sure you're familiar with what you're doing. I played Shredders, which is a snowboarding game, which is like super good. It's by a whole bunch of not a whole bunch of indie developers. Well, I guess individual developers within a studio. It's on Game Pass. It's super good. It's just like, it knows what it can do. It's not going to be SSX. They don't have the budget, so they kind of make fun of the fact that they have the voices of these pros in the game who clearly were recording their lines in like a closet during the pandemic, and they're just like, eh. And they have everybody in like just full goggles and like face masks, so it's like they don't look like they're supposed to because we can't afford to do it. Like, I like the humor. It's a decent humor, not like tiny Wonderlands. And it's just fun. Like, it's very trick centric. Sometimes the physics go a little bit wonky, but like most of the time it's pretty enjoyable. And it's like, if I needed a 20-minute break from something, I just go and pull off spins. I've also played TPL2, Trivial Pursuit Live 2, which if you were in the pandemic and you had access to Trivial Pursuit Live 1, I know you did, Ben. It's more of the same. It's super enjoyable. So Matt and I will just like kill a half an hour trying to make each other feel stupid if we can best them in a trivia game. So I think it's like $30. It's pretty good if you are
I'll play it.
so
It's good.
inclined. Do you want to
When it's on sale.
Yes. Do you want to finish off with some Grand Theft Auto?
Yeah, GTA 5 the third. I actually did play it, so I think for the $15 on PlayStation, it's worth it if you haven't played it before, or you played it on like PS3, 360, and played it again. I think that's definitely worth it. Don't think it's worth the $30 on Xbox if you already played it last gen. Very annoying that it's a double the cost there. But yeah, so when I first played it, I thought, oh, it looks like GTA, but there's like, so you have to go into your old save file, load up your save to Rockstar, Social Club, whatever, then you download it in the new version. The good part about doing that really annoying thing is you can put it onto any platform. So I uploaded my Xbox One save and I'm playing that on PS5, which I think is pretty good. Not many games let you do that.
Trophies?
All the trophies unlocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then I went back just to make sure I didn't accidentally lose my save on the Xbox version in case I want to upload it again somewhere. It's still there, but it made me look at the game again on Xbox One, running on a Series X, so I think it's upscaled to something. And it looks terrible. Like it's actually quite a meaningful upgrade. It looks way better. running in 60 frames with ray tracing makes it look a lot better. It's an old game. Like it's old, but it looks way better than it did before. If you haven't played it, I think it's worthwhile. And while I do think it should have been a free upgrade if you own it, at least they're saying you can buy it for $15 even if you don't own it. So I think it's fine in the end. I just wish it was that on both platforms. But yes, if you want to play the story again, this is definitely the version to play.
I got so
Yeah,
confused.
actually,
No, go. You go.
I jumped into it just briefly today as well because $15, yeah, is a pittance. Go for it. I haven't touched it since the PS3 version, though I did buy the PS4 version, play it for half an hour, and then stop. I did try and transfer my save. It insisted I need to agree to some new version of the terms and conditions, which it would not tell me how to get to beyond go to Rockstar Social Club. Couldn't do that, so I just started over. And yeah, like for a game that is, God, how old? 2013 it came out.
Yeah.
So much. It looks good. I played enough to get up to that scene with Franklin and his friend, the iconic scene outside of his house with that word that none of us have enough melanin to repeat.
Correct.
And yeah, like there's just enough polish to call it an okay now game, but for something that is 2 generations ago, it's looking pretty good.
I'm annoyed that I got 2 codes from Rockstar. I didn't pay $15. I'm playing it on Xbox. But like I downloaded the 2 codes, and like I'll fully admit that I have zero interest in Rockstar, I have interest in Rockstar, not in Grand Theft Auto Online. So I had the code for Grand Theft Auto Online and the code for story mode of GTA 5. And I downloaded, like, put in both the codes, and I went to download the game, and I only saw it online. And I went, well, I don't want to download that. I just want the story mode. You have to download online, which then gives you access to story mode, which is just embedded within the title, which is weird on its own because that's just kind of like pushing you towards online and potentially towards microtransactions. I don't like that.
It's the same on PlayStation, except the game that you're playing is called GTA 5. It's not called GTA Online.
It's online.
And then when you go into that,
for me,
there's online or story. So I don't know what's going on Xbox.
But when you get into the main menu, it's GTA Online first, and then kind of
you
the story is
between the ones. Yeah.
No one else will have that problem because no one's getting 2 free codes. They're just going to go buy this game. So that's literally only you with that issue.
Yeah, sorry. But like playing it, it starts off in not performance RT mode, which you should absolutely go into the menus and put it into performance RT mode. Because the good thing you were talking about all those opening scenes. I've recorded like a 3-minute video which just compares the Xbox One version of GTA 5 to the GTA 5 Xbox Series X performance RT version, and like you can see the difference. It is from 2013, so like when it comes to like motion capture, it's kind of like that like endearing like Rockstar clunk. Like it's close enough, but
they're
like,
less clunky.
Yeah,
like in 60 frames.
Oh yeah, like it's not bad, but you can tell it was like some things are from 2013. You can't really like you can make them look prettier, but you can't like redo them. But like colors, the lighting, like it's an actual like noticeable enhancement between old and new. So if you're a huge fan, if you want to spend $15 and just like copy all your trophies or your achievements over, if you just want to play it again because it's been so long, because this game like just literally won't die, you absolutely can.
Yep. Well, GTA Online, I think, is like the most insanely profitable online game that's ever existed. It's made some ridiculous amount of money, so I'm sure we will see it for many, many years to come until even Skyrim has said, yeah, that's enough.
Oh, God. We're not doing any news. We have so much time probably in the next couple months that we can backdate some news and get back into that. But, Ben, because you got so upset last time, this fortnight in delays.
Yes.
We have.
What do we got?
EA Sports PGA Tour has been delayed from beyond Q2 2022 into fully 2023.
Oh no!
We've still never seen any gameplay or anything about this. It has a whole bunch of licensed properties. It has the LPGA, which is the ladies' professional golf. So that's not even the right acronym. Whatever, you know what I mean.
I was gonna say that's pretty insulting for an acronym.
LPGA. I don't know what it is. It's the PGA with ladies at the start of it. It really is ladies. And Rocksteady's Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League has been delayed into 2023, confirming previous rumors from like February. So. Sefton Hill just didn't really say why, but the rumors were kind of standard, like COVID, and more COVID. They just need more time, which is kind of weird because I think Arkham Knight was 2015. Like they've had a long time to do a game. Like I guess they just need more time to do a game. I don't know if that's concerning to you guys or not?
I'd rather
No,
they
but
take more time than rush it out, honestly.
Yeah, it leaves a big hole because, like, so the start of this year has been pretty busy, and a lot of that stuff was games that got delayed into the start of this year, and now there's kind of like nothing almost with the release date. It wouldn't surprise me if something like Starfield, which does have one in November, slips and gets pushed back because that's the way everything goes. So, like, we've had game, and I haven't had time to play any of them, but now there's almost nothing unless you're desperate to play Lego Star Wars again. There's not much coming up.
Well, I guess that means we can all just get through our backlogs. There's also, I guess, if you're a DC Comics fan, Gotham Knights, which is the WB Montreal game with the Bat family, that's still presumably on track for 2022. There was rumors of a Steam beta, so maybe you'll get a chance to play it even sooner than you think. Who knows? But like, we're over time, and I don't pay you guys for this, so like, let's get out of here. Matt, thank you for joining us. Thank you for reviewing so many bloody games in the last little while. How do we keep up with you? How do we follow you? What's your non-hacked social media accounts?
Yeah, I got real good hacked a couple of months ago. It's fun to learn how many things are connected to Facebook and how quickly they can all go away. You can follow me on Twitter. That's probably the easiest one. It's just @Ponk, Ponk. If you want to get updates on how my cat was sick and now she's better. That's pretty much the hot goss.
That's good news. And if you go to Stevivor and check out reviews, including the Chaos one, and Ghostwire Tokyo, you'll have more. We'll have to double check that all your handles are up to date, but you can get more handles, social media handles from there. I'm babbling. Ben, you go. Thanks.
Ben_Salter Twitter. That's the only one that I have currently active. You can read my Kirby review. That's the thing of all I've done the whole year. That one review.
And a preview.
And a preview. That's right. Two things. We get to see each other IRL next week, so that's before our next episode. So that's exciting.
I was gonna suggest we do some sort of like episode, but no, we're not. There's no time for this. No, we're not doing it.
We can do it at your party. The whole thing will be like a live stream. That's how we can come back to Twitch.
Yeah.
Sup, boys?
Yeah.
It's your boy. No,
that's
we're
right.
not doing that. We're not doing that.
No, we're not.
That's right on things. It's you, whatever. I wanted to finish off just thanking Luke Glory, who was on last fortnight's episode. He is a legend in the Australian games journalism scene. He's just no longer working for Stevivor in a freelance capacity. He got a gig at the Gamers Group, doing some tremendous stuff as the Australian editor. I'm assuming with the focus on esports, which he is like absolutely suited to do. So our loss is Gamers Group's absolute gain. We wish him nothing but the best. We thank him for everything he's done. We can still get him on for a podcast or two, so that will be fun. And you can also still check him out on the GAP, the Game Arena Podcast. I don't think they ever call it that, but that's what it stands for. Pro tip. And also he's had some bad news in his family, and we wish him and his family nothing but the best, and they're in our thoughts as things hopefully come out for the best. So we love you, Luke. And on that note, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again in a fortnight.